The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Matt Fraser, the athlete, fitness expert, and best-selling author. You are known as the fittest man on earth after becoming the first person to win 5 CrossFit Games titles, winning the 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 2020 games consecutively. The CrossFit Games is the definitive test of fitness, combining strength, speed, endurance, and skill to find the best overall athlete on the planet. And you are widely considered to be the most dominant and successful individual male athlete in the sport of CrossFit. Your mantra is hard work pays off, which is also the title of your Sunday Times best-selling book and offers an in-depth guide for anyone hoping to improve their fitness and become the best version of themselves possible. You believe that consistency, alongside a relentless attitude, enabled you to become the #1 athlete in the world. Matt, welcome to London Real.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you here. You know, I want to jump right in because your mindset is what really got me excited about today. And maybe it reminded me a little bit of my mindset sometimes. But you say that you love to train scared, but yet it's more complicated than that. And I'm just going to quote you because you said to be the best version of yourself, you have to, quote, simultaneously believe that I'm overrated and invincible, that I'm an imposter on the verge of being humiliated on the competition floor, and that I'm an untouchable Lamborghini on a sea of broken down hoopties, to use some American slang. Explain that mentality.
Yeah, it was, so for anyone that's unfamiliar with, the sport of CrossFit, most competitions that you go into, there's no rules or regulations on what the events can be. You don't know how many events you're going to do. You don't know what movements you're going to do, time domains, anything. So you have to practice for everything, or try to practice for everything. And so, you're always trying to imagine, what could the competition program for an event that would derail me, or, put me in last place, or just humiliate me. So you're trying to creatively think of what would cause me to fail, and then practicing it. But then at the same time, when I would be training on an implement that I was familiar with, comfortable with, and I knew my paces and stuff like that, you have to have this mindset of that I am the best, I am strong, nothing can beat me, because there's peaks and valleys in it. And so I remember, whenever I was on, either a rowing machine or a Concept 2 bike, or basically just like a fan spin bike, I would set it up in front of the mirror and watch myself and just convince myself, like, I have horse lungs. Like, no one can take in more oxygen than me. No one's more powerful than me. But at the same time, I'm thinking everyone's going to beat me. So I have to give just an absolute 100% of my effort, knowing that no matter how I feel right now, in 10 minutes, I'm going to have my breath back, my heart rate's going to be down, and I'm going to feel fine. So it's making sure that how am I going to feel about that effort I just gave in 10 minutes when all the pain is gone. So it's just always making sure that I'm making myself proud, knowing that I'm pushing myself to the absolute limit and tapping my potential. But then always training, picturing people beating me.
How do you keep those two concepts in your head at the same moment? Because most people walk around with one or the other, usually the latter. Most people probably defeat themselves before they even try things most of the times, and imagine all the bad things that'll happen. But like, how do you keep them both in your mind? Because if you're too egotistic, then you won't train hard enough.
Yeah, once I find the perfect formula, I'll let you know. And it's a wave of emotions, because you can go, usually it feels like your best training day ever is immediately followed by your worst training day ever. So it's trying to find that balance and have that calming confidence as well, of like, everything's going to be okay. This too shall pass, like, give this a couple days to recover. It's okay to take a rest day, and putting in all the work outside of the gym, the body work, nutrition, sleep, all that stuff. But just having that calming presence of everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't great at that part.
And you also say, and you mentioned, you kind of alluded to this earlier, I'm going to do today what other people aren't willing to do, so I can do tomorrow what other people can't. That's kind of yours. What is that?
Oh, no, that's not mine. That was, that actually came from, so I believe it was Jerry Rice that said it, but then it was in engineering school, and my study partner and I, the guy that, we kind of made sure that we were all in all the same classes so that we could be study partners, or if we had a project or a test coming up, we could work together, because he was kind of in the same boat as me. He was a little bit older than everyone else in class. He also didn't drink, so he had no interest to go into like the college parties or anything like that. So Friday and Saturday night, it was he and I were in the library, and he was actually the one that introduced me to it. And it was probably like 10 p.m. on a Friday, Saturday night, and we're both just trying to rack our brains around this report that's due, and he said that line, and it just clicked with me. I was like, oh, of course. Like, if I want those results on the next exam, I need to be the one that's staying in the library longer than everyone else. I need to be the one that's reading more than everyone else. I need to be the one that's practicing, because I'm not the most naturally talented person by a long shot, but I'll make sure I outwork most.
Right. So you learned that lesson as a student before you became an athlete.
Yeah, it was the same as with the mantra, hard work pays off. I think because I got my notoriety and I got my popularity through competing in CrossFit, that I think most people assume that's where that came from. But that was from engineering school. And a couple of years in, it was once I finally made the decision that like, this isn't an option. This isn't I want to be an engineer. This is like, oh fuck, I have to be an engineer because I got nothing else. And it was during thermodynamics, and I found out later that it was known as like a weed out course in university. It was early on, and so they're like, they were like, we want to make sure that if you don't like engineering, you find out early, so that you can just like cut your losses basically. And so the first exam, it was an embarrassing score. I think I got like a 38 on my first exam, and then the second exam wasn't much better. It was 42, and then the teacher going into the final was, he was like, hey, the average in the class right now is like a 48. Like 90% of you are failing. So if your final exam is your highest score, that's your entire grade. And I just went, okay, like, good. And I just knew that if I'm not pursuing engineering, if I don't become an engineer, what the hell am I? And so I was like, I don't know what I have to do, so I'm going to make sure to just do everything. And I remember I would sit up in the library, I would go up to the third floor, it was the silent floor, and I would just get a little cubicle and this ungodly sized cup of coffee, and I would just have the textbook, and I would just read the entire chapter, and I would take notes of every word that I didn't know what it was, go back, research each one of those words individually, and then reread the chapter. And then like the homework problems, if it was, one for, there's a half dozen problems for the homework, I would do all 40 from that chapter. And it was just like, I'm not gonna leave a single stone unturned. And then I, aced the final. And then I remember in the thermodynamics too, it's like there was a couple tests that I set the curve for the class, and I was like, oh shit, okay, this works, And the biggest thing for me was I learned how to learn. And so, I continued that through engineering, and then, found CrossFit and just applied the same mentality to CrossFit. And I was like, okay, this works pretty well. I'm gonna keep applying this to every aspect of my life.
Interesting. Wow. I've never heard of an athlete that used what they learned in engineering to become a better athlete.
Yeah, I wasn't like through high school, I was far from the star student. Like I cut every corner possible. I remember when I would get the syllabus, it was when I was usually about halfway through the semester, 2/3 of the way through the semester in high school, I would go through the syllabus and see the grading system of how like attendance, homework, tests, quizzes, how they were all weighted. And I would see how far into the semester I had to go before I stopped doing homework, before I stopped showing up for exams, anything like that. And, the teachers would be like, Matt, like you had an A in the class and now you're down to a C or almost a D. Like, what's happening? I did all the math on the syllabus. I have a passing grade, so that's all I care about. And so I was far from the star student. And but then once it came to university, it was that that doesn't cut it. Not studying for exams, not doing homework. The teacher doesn't care. They'll fail you. It's no skin off their back. And so but then so learning how to learn for me was the biggest revolution for me of just like, how do I have to break down each of these situations into a daily test, whether my goal is next month, next year, 5 years from now, what do I have to do today to get to where I want to be in 5 years? And just having that daily checklist of like, okay, I did everything I could today to get myself where I want to be in 5 years.
Right. I'm having flashbacks to my degree, in my engineering degree, in my thermodynamics class that I took as a sophomore. So I went to MIT, and people always say, what was Boston like? And I always say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I was in the fucking basement.
Yep.
So we had a 24-hour library at MIT called Hayden. I just wanted to visit it a few months ago because my daughter's going to go to school in Boston. And I went back, and I used to live in a fraternity house, and I used to get a big bag full of books. And I would head out and walk by all the guys drinking beer, and I would go there and stay there till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And they called it tooling at MIT, which means you just get in there and you try to shove as much information in your brain as possible.
Yep.
And thermodynamics was crazy hard. There's all these concepts that are just challenging to figure out. And like you said, it weeds out the men from the boys.
Yeah. I remember doing it. It was really funny. I went to University of Vermont for the majority of my degree, and walking through campus, and it's like you see all the students like laying out in the courtyard, or they slacklining. They're all just doing fun activities, and then you see all the engineers, and it's just like they're all wearing like Carhartt pants and just a heavy flannel. It's just whatever's practical. It gets the job done, gets you through the Vermont winter, and then you just live in the library. And I remember, I was trying to get through my degree as quickly as possible. I actually did 2 degrees. Did engineering, then I also got a degree from the business school as well. And so I was just trying to crank through as much as I could. So during the semester, just every course I could fit in, and then taking summer courses. And for the really, really hard classes, I would go to the teacher, hey, are you offering this during the summer? And they said, we need 8 students to offer it. If you get 8 other students, I'll teach this in the summer. And I'm like, all right, let's go on a campaign. And I would convince 7 other students to do it with me. And we would do, I think I did fluid dynamics and heat transfer. And the teacher was like, hey, like, I'll do it. Like, do you guys want this to be an 8-week course, a 4-week course? And we would be like 4 weeks. And so we would sit in the classroom for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, and just fit a whole semester into 4 weeks. And it was miserable.
I love it.
But you have that one singular focus. You're not worried about any other courses, any other homework. And then you have 7 other, study partners that it was just like, hey boys, let's sit down, let's crank through this, and let's just get through this together. And then you're patting yourself on the back, you're thanking yourself the next semester when you're sitting in whatever course it is, and then all your classmates from heat transfer come in, and they're all like, oh my God, that test.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.